Assalamu alaikum, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Shake It Up. I'm your host, Imam Ibrahim, and I have with me Faraz Iqbal.
Assalamu alaikum.
How you doing, brother?
Alhamdulillah, doing good.
MashaAllah. I see you're shaming us with...
Yeah, and my Giants gear. You know, you're asking what was good about the 80s. Well, I got my Giants gear on, you know. Giants got their...
They didn't even win a Super Bowl in the 80s.
87.
Oh, yeah, they did.
Against the Broncos.
Right.
Yeah, I remember that. I was in middle school.
Mm.
So yeah, that was the beginning of winning their Super Bowls. And so...
How many do they have?
4.
4, okay.
Yeah.
When was the last time they were in the playoffs?
It's been many years. We've had a bit of a drought, so you know we're trying to make dua now that inshallah Allah accept it, you know. But
I feel like I'm sorry, I just gotta say this. I feel like the last two were some kind of punishment to Tom Brady.
Yeah.
And so it was like to humble him.
Yeah.
He had to go through Eli Manning and lose twice to Eli Manning.
Yeah.
I don't know. What are your thoughts on that?
I agree. I mean, I brought this here, so for all of you seeing this is a bobblehead of Eli Manning, and you can see him bobble his head, and you can see the 2 rings that he won against the Patriots. So
does it say Tom Brady's daddy somewhere?
It should. You know, Manning is the new. If you look up Manning, it says, you know, who's your daddy for Brady, but you know, it's a bobblehead. This is actually we got this. Imad and I, my son, we went to the Giants game. And they brought Eli Manning into the Ring of Honor, so they retired his jersey that day. So these are limited edition bobbleheads, believe it or not. So we got that from that game, and it's a reminder of, you know, the Patriots losing. And anytime my family members just disagree with me, I talk to Eli, and he always says yes to me. Just bobble his head and say yes, and that's how it works. I mean, that's how it works.
Look, I'll say it like this though: the only one who was able to top a humiliating defeat to Tom Brady was Nick Foles.
Okay.
A backup quarterback. In Philly. Able to beat him with a trick play that he used earlier.
Yeah.
And then he called it the Philly.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you know, but same division. So.
Oh, okay. So you don't like them. That's true.
Yeah. Yeah. But I'll take that. It's not a big deal.
All right.
NFC East, you know, it's a tough division. Even though if all the teams.
Tough to be in or tough to play against?
Both.
Are you sure?
Yeah, because all teams could be horrible, but they'll play each other really tough.
Yeah, I mean, but that's their level. I mean,
that's the level. That's the level, man. It's always you can get a good game.
All right, so tell us a little bit about yourself. What do you do? What's your background?
So background. So grew up in New Jersey, born and raised in New Jersey, married, have 4 kids and 2 cats. Alhamdulillah.
So 6 kids.
6 kids, yeah. Got my undergrad at Pace University, New York. So I dormed there. Did my I did management information systems was my undergrad, and then I went to Fairfield University in Connecticut and did international business.
Nice.
And I did my master's while I was working, so I did part-time masters, and you know, worked in the day, did my master's at night. Lived in the Northeast until 2007. I got married in 2000, and then moved down to Atlanta in 2007.
Okay.
Right. So I've been here for about 15 years now. So
MashaAllah, man, 2007 was 15 years ago. That's
and background's in tech, so I've been in the tech space.
Okay, cool. So all right, MashaAllah. And what else do you do on the side? I mean, you know, that must be pretty boring just staring at a screen. You got to have some kind of hobby.
Yeah, I do.
From New Jersey, and you're always looking at a screen. I mean, you have to have something to kind of.
So outside of gardening,
gardening.
You know, I do love playing sports, and so you know. Whether it be basketball, soccer, volleyball, flag football. I haven't played flag football in a while, but you know, I like just getting out there and playing sports. Biking, I've been getting a lot into biking. Nice. We actually have a Atlanta Muslim cycle club here in Atlanta.
Really?
Yeah.
We got a bike gang?
We got a bike gang, but a bicycle gang, not like a, you know, Harley gang.
So not as not as gritty.
Yeah.
A little more posh.
Yeah, a little bit more posh. But it's it's fun. You know, we get out with the brothers. We kind of hit up the different trails and whatnot. We get together, stay fit, and we kind of do things. So it's really fun.
Awesome.
Really
awesome.
Good.
And you said gardening.
I do gardening, yes. So I have a garden. I have tomato. I got a lot of tomatoes this year. Mashallah. Tomatoes and green peppers, red peppers, squash, and all that stuff. So, you know, it's one of those things I can go out in the morning, pick some peppers and tomatoes and make myself an omelet, you know, so it's kind of cool. I don't got chickens or anything like that, just gardening.
I'm just gonna let you know. I think the 15 to 20-year-olds just tuned off. I felt it. I felt them go.
You felt
okay,
the disconnect. You felt
there's a lot of gray hair, and he's
Yeah.
talking about gardening, and he's
Yeah.
from New Jersey,
Yeah.
and he likes the Giants.
Yeah,
I'm out.
I know. It's
We gotta have something exciting for the podcast, you know.
It's tough. It's really tough, you know. But hopefully, I can reel in some of the 40-somethings in, you know, and something like that. So
We gotta be universal. And okay, fine,
Yeah.
fine. So this is for like those on the cusp of retirement.
not that old yet, man. Not that old. Not yet.
Mashallah. All right. So 80s kid, right?
Yeah. Yep.
What was it like back then? I hear it's better than the 90s. Because we had our first episode, and me and Hassan were talking about how awesome the 90s was, and a few of the 80s kids were like, nah.
Yeah. No, 80s was great, you know. It was fun. We didn't have social media back then, so social was all getting together. And I remember, so we lived in Ringwood, New Jersey. So that's the northern part of New Jersey, and it was really mountainous and really beautiful. And so we would just kind of, you know, think about it. When it snowed there, it snowed a lot, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so when it would snow, if school was off, we'd have snowball fights. We'd
Oh,
play.
nice.
We had a lake, and so we'd play ice hockey when it would freeze over. You know, the fall time was beautiful. I mean, the trees were just such vibrant colors. I haven't seen that many vibrant colors in such a long time. And I think about it, we had just acres in the backyard, and it was just nothing but colorful trees. And so in the fall time, we would go hang out, and we'd play with friends, basketball. We'd play stickball, right? So poor man's game of baseball. You get a little broomstick, and you get a tennis ball, and we used to play football. And it was really a really cool neighborhood, right? And we had a really fun time, people from different walks of life, and I just really enjoyed it. And I really enjoyed our childhood in the 80s. I think it was just fun, really good memories, fond memories. And I think there was a sense of purity in the sense that, you know, when we were younger, the politics didn't really kind of kick in, right, till later on. And I think that was kind of really cool, the ability to just kind of hang out and have fun. We just chilled and had a really good time.
Didn't Seinfeld come out in the...
Seinfeld came out, Cosby Show.
Ninja Turtles, too.
Ninja
right?
Turtles came out.
The good old Shredder, the one that was like...
Yeah.
Actually...
Yeah. The Gummy Bears came out. You know, Gummy Bear is the halal version, not the, you know, the one
Okay,
with the gelatin.
we're not going to talk about that.
Dungeons and Dragons was big back then.
Was it?
Yeah, it was huge.
I feel like that... Okay, so I feel like the 80s is kind of... Karate Kid. That's kind of the quintessential...
By the way, Karate Kid saved my life.
It saved your life.
Oh, yeah. So, I remember... so I watched Karate Kid, right?
Okay.
And so we were in Jersey City once, and we were just kind of playing in the playground. And, we went into an area, and we're suburban kids, right? So a bunch of suburban kids walk around in the city. And some kids came up to us, and they were kind of, it was kind of rough back then. Jersey City now is gentrified, so it's kind of completely different to what it was back then. And these guys came up to us like they were going to rough us up, and I just made some karate moves up, and I kind of did this, and I did, the crane kick. Yeah, I did this, and those guys looked at us, and they thought like, what the heck's going on here? They ran one direction and we ran the other direction, right? And
that's a classic 80s thing.
Yeah, I mean, the crane kick worked, you know. Now, I didn't get to initiate the full crane part, right? I didn't do the kick part of the crane.
You didn't knock him out?
No, because they ran and so did we. And so I do attribute Ralph Macchio for the crane kick. Thank you for helping me, get some confidence and not getting my butt kicked in Jersey City.
All right. So you've gone from being Karate Kid to now you're Mr. Miyagi.
Yeah, Mr. Miyagi.
After all these years.
Yeah, I try my kids to tell them to wax on, wax off on the car, but it doesn't work that well.
Nobody does it anymore.
Yeah, nobody does anymore. They just say, take it to the car wash, Baba. What are you doing? Right, so.
All right. So you grew up in the 80s. You went to college, and you said you did... what did you do again? Remind us.
Yeah, so I graduated. So I graduated in the 90s, though, right? So, but management information systems. So
okay.
That's
that was probably a new field, right?
It was a mismajor.
It was.
Get it? MIS mismajor.
Wow.
Yeah, I know.
Wow. I mean, I told them we're gonna have dad jokes,
Yeah, it's
but
gonna
he's out dadding me. It's.
Well, in my friend circle, I'm capped at 3 dad jokes a day. If I go beyond 3, I don't got permission. So,
all right,
be
so
prepared.
that's strike one.
That's one. That's one.
We'll try to get the third by the end.
Yeah. So so I graduated management information systems. That was it was a business degree, but in the tech space, right? So did that, and I really did that because I was interested in technology. So my dad is against video games, right? And so one day he came in and he's like, okay, he gave me a Texas Instrument 99, called a TI 99. And he goes, if you want to play games, program it. So he gave me a computer, and back then we used to code on cassette tapes, not even disk drives or anything.
Yeah.
It was cassette tapes. And so I would just kind of code and make my little games and play with it. And that got me really interested into the computer field. And I started kind of getting into it from there.
So you still keep up with coding till today?
Well, now I've gotten away from coding. I'm more on the operation side, on the tech
right.
side now. But I did code in the beginning because it kind of gave me a really good understanding of just how things worked. And not only that, if you play code in a cassette tape, man, it sounds really cool, actually. You can hit play, and it's kind of nerdy, but it's kind of really cool.
I mean, you're talking typewriters at this point. I mean,
I know.
Like you said, cassette. They're
Cassette,
like, huh? What was that?
No. It was
All right. What was college like back then? High school, college. What was that? I mean, usually when someone imagines the 80s, 90s, they imagine those football jackets and the big patch.
Yeah, the varsity jackets. I had one
Yeah.
of those. I had those, and I had the varsity letter. I got one of those too from running and track.
Usually they take pride in football. But
But I was a track runner, so I do track, soccer, and I did intramurals like volleyball, and I played soccer as well. So I mean, so tried to stay active in my high school.
Yeah,
and then it was good. I think I had a bit of a transition in high school, so I switched high schools during my sophomore year, and I think that was a tough part for me because Friday I was going to a high school that I grew up with these kids since I was like in kindergarten, and Monday I started 10th grade with a whole new set of people, new school. It wasn't as diverse. I was the minority, and I remember that being really difficult. I had a lot of challenges with identity, quite frankly, and dealt with bullying as well too. And so I had to navigate through that in high school, kind of living the dual life of the culture at home, because my parents emigrated here right from Pakistan, and that culture at home and the culture in school. And that kind of triggered more when I switched high schools. It was interesting. And so kind of figuring that out, it was challenging. And then during that time, the first Gulf War happened. So like in the 80s.
This is like late 80s, early 90s.
Early 90s, yeah, 91. So, in the 80s, you did deal with things in school. I did deal with some...
Back then, certain groups were actually... The White House was approving of them, right?
Yeah. But we dealt with... So back in the 80s, there were some hijackings that we used to go on with Libya and stuff like that. And so we would get some of that. You'd hear the terrorist comment every now and then in the hallways of school and stuff like that. It would come and go, and then... when it really hit me, it was when we had the first Gulf War.
Yeah.
And I remember that because in my social studies class, the teacher brought in a TV, CNN, and for the whole class just played out the war. And that was the first time I'm sitting there. I'm a brown guy with just pretty much all white people, right? It wasn't really diverse. And I'm seeing people of my color on TV, and you're seeing a war being done against them. And all the names are Muslim names. And that was done every day for a week, right? For the whole period. And that's when I started really looking at, whoa, am I different? I knew I was different, right? With the culture thing and balancing that. But that's when I really was like, wait a minute, I have a teacher sitting up there, right? He's showing this real, and everyone's reacting to it. And, back then, America was going in to save the Iraqi people from themselves. And the time, Muslim came up, fundamentalists, terrorists, and terrorists this and the terrorists that. And that was really challenging for me because I was trying to come to terms with, what do I do here? I have no idea what to do. How do I start a conversation? What am I supposed to say? Should I say anything? And,
but do you think what he did was wrong, or was he intentional about it, or he was probably just seeing it as an opportunity for current events?
Yeah, I think he didn't know what he was doing in terms of the impact to me. he was just a social studies teacher showing, hey, let me just put this on TV for us to understand that we're going through a war right now. What he didn't realize is by doing that and not having any background or discussion with the class, he was putting people like me and other people in a weird spot. And it may have been unintentional, but nonetheless, it still had an impact. And, that just goes back to having better understanding of cultures and religions and people in general. And I think, we were going through a transition phase then too, because as Muslims, this is the first time we're really getting hit with stuff. I mean, there's histories that happened before, but for my generation, right? I'm talking from my experience. This is the first time I'm starting to now, before I was America, 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 I'm part of America, I'm part of the fabric. This was the first time now I'm starting to feel like I'm being pulled away from what America is. Am I something different? And that's what I was trying to come to terms with.
That's interesting. I mean, so my dad came here in the early 80s.
Yeah.
And that was, and then when the Iraq war happened, actually, he lost contact with his family. So there were a lot of Palestinians that left from Palestine.
Yeah.
Some of them went to Jordan, some of them went to Lebanon, some went to Egypt, some in Syria, and others went to Kuwait. And then the wars happened there.
Yeah.
And so they're a minority in Kuwait, and stuff happened, and basically he didn't know where his family was.
Yeah.
So it's interesting you mentioned that, because it had a direct impact on Palestinians as well, in a very interesting way. I mean, you have so many of them here now. There's like, okay, that was our initial immigration, and now it's completely been cut off.
Yeah.
And now it's kind of growing into, okay, well, hold on a second. Looks like we're here longer than we intended.
Yeah.
And so it changed the conversation.
Yeah.
SubhanAllah. So fast forward 10 years later, another incident happens. Where were you, and how did that happen?
Yeah. So I was in Connecticut at the time, and I was working. And
Is it while you were doing your master's, or?
Yes. No, I just finished my master's.
Okay, you had
I finished my master's. So I finished my schooling.
Yeah.
Because I had to get a master's in order to get married, but we can get back to that.
I don't know if we have time for that. That's an interesting story we got to touch on.
Yeah, so, I remember that day because...
you don't hold your kids to that criteria, do you?
What? No.
Okay.
Yeah. And I remember that day because I had gotten a phone call. My cousin had called me and said, hey, Faraz, did you see what happened? I kind of quickly went to the news, and I saw that, a plane had gone into the Twin Towers. And, it was, I couldn't believe what I was seeing. And I remember then I was at work as well, too. And there was just a lot of tension building up because, a building got hit, then the Pentagon got hit. So there was a lot of things that were going on. And there was a lot of tension building up. And I remember I was in the hallway at work, and I remember someone running down the hallway saying, "It must suck to be a Muslim today." And this is at work. And I'm in the early stage of my career, right? And I didn't know what to say, because this was someone who was kind of in the higher ranks of the company too.
Yeah.
So, all this stuff is going on, and
that's so strange. I mean, wouldn't it suck to be an American?
Yeah, but you can see what people came out.
They had to have a villain, right?
Either a villain or just you can tell what's inside people, right? I mean, just boom, it came out, right? It must suck to be a Muslim today, and because he knew I was Muslim too, right? So I mean, he was kind of running by and kind of saying that. Not knowing what position that put me in. It was a good person. Like, the person wasn't a bad person.
So he didn't mean it like that.
I don't think he meant it as a derogatory thing towards me. But again, going back to what my social studies teacher did. He did something not knowing the impact, but just did it. Here, someone did the same thing and just did it, not knowing the impact. And I stopped dead in my tracks. I was in the hallway. I didn't know what to do, and I went back into my office. And then, a bunch of emails were coming through, and I remember my college friends, they were all kind of emailing, did you see this? Did you see that? Wow, what's going on here? Look at this. And all this news started building up, and it was tough. I'll tell you, I I didn't know how to handle it. I paused. I talked to family, made dua.
Yeah.
Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala help us in this. But it wasn't easy because that really put us, when I was telling you, I felt a little bit kind of pulled apart from the American fabric.
It probably was even
that was
more.
just kind of like, let me just rip you out.
Yeah.
Because of what someone had done. And, I'd known someone who passed away in that, and it was in the building in the Twin Towers, and had another close friend who, just because his bus was delayed by 10 minutes, he missed going into the building. He worked there as well too. So, it was so many things kind of going on that day. And it was just crazy, just kind of how this all kind of put together. But that was a day I remember vividly because of that statement. And that still hits me in my head today because you never know what's in someone's inner thoughts. And it may not be negative. Remember, people sometimes just have something registered in their mind and it'll come out. And that's where I started thinking that we need to do a better job educating. You can't blame people if they don't know. I mean, yeah, they should have a right upon themselves to kind of learn, but we should be doing the education, which is part of the prophetic tradition. The Prophet ﷺ went around and educated, right? And if people were ignorant after the education, it's a different story. But I think that really opened my eyes to, we really need to educate people. And are Muslims part of the fabric of the U.S. where they are uplifting the society? Because if they are, it would be easy to say, no, wait a minute, Muslims don't do that. This is just some group. But because maybe we're not as involved, or we are, but it's just not seen, people don't see that. They see the Muslims as, who is this group, this foreign group? And that's what the conversations were.
Yeah.
Who is this foreign group? What's going on? So on and so forth.
And so if it's shrouded in kind of this mystery, then they make villains out of them.
Yeah, I'll tell you, if you rewind from that, so when I was in college in 93, there was the first hit on the trade towers. Remember, there was that thing done. And I remember one of my friends coming into my dorm room and he goes, "Hey, Faraz, there was these Muslims that did this thing in Twin Towers, but that's not Islam, right? That I know you're not like that, so these guys must be doing something weird. Like, that's not Islam, right?" I'm like, "Yeah." Right? And so it registered, it clicked that, hey, you know what? Muslims don't do this. That's some weird thing. And, fast forward. So that was a rewind that we did. And, we had some open conversations on that. And, we really had a lot of open dialogue on faith in college. College for me was really a point where my identity was being defined. In middle school, it had, it was good. It had some challenges, right? What I mentioned earlier. High school was really challenging. But when I went into college, it really helped me define who I was. And I think it had to do with because, there was a bunch of people, right? All different walks of life, different faiths, and they were open-minded. But at the same time, I made a conscious decision to let them know my identity. I didn't, not that I really hid it in high school, but I came out more in college that, hey, this is kind of what my faith is, right? I don't drink. I don't date. I don't do these things, but I do these things. And that led to a lot of open dialogue, and it helped me gain more confidence in myself. College, it was a big confidence booster for me. And it's all the friends that you keep. I think it's the du'as of our parents, our grandparents, of, how that experience was. But it really opened my eyes. I remember, so there was a story that I share with Sunday school kids. I'll make it really, really brief. This was
They've already tuned out.
They've already tuned out.
Yeah, I mean, you talked about gardening. They're gone.
They're gone. So maybe I'll tune them back.
All right, let's get them. Let's go.
I'll try to, maybe I'll pay them. Hey, how much money you got, man? I remember, it was a few days into college, and now, college is okay. So when you have major milestones in life, you have an opportunity to change yourself. Like when you're getting a new job, if you're changing schools, you're changing grades into a different school, you have an opportunity to redefine because people won't know any better. Right. So here I was, about 20 guys. We just kind of clicked and we're hanging out. And then we went into this one room. There's 20 plus of us kind of sitting in a room. And the conversation was the first time they were with a girl. Okay. And I'm like, man, this is a horrible discussion. Right. Everyone's kind of they're reminiscing about their time and they're talking about it. and I never had, you know, I never did. I mean, our faith doesn't, you know, allow it, and I didn't have any desire to, so whatever. I mean, you know, we just follow the faith. So I remember they were going through the stories. I'm like, maybe I can pick and choose like from different parts of the story.
Make up your own one.
Right?
Yeah.
Or I'm like, maybe I could kind of just walk away when it's my turn. But you know, these guys are smart. When you walk in, they'll ask you, come on, tell us what your thing is. So long story short, my turn came, and it felt like it was like a pause forever. And I just, all eyes were looking at me. I'm like, all right, Faraz, tell us your story. And I was like, guys, I don't have one. And like, what do you mean? You know? And I was like, I've never been with a girl, right? That's just, you know, my faith doesn't, you know, we're our wife is who we're going to be with, right? So if I'm going to date or do whatever, it's my wife. And I remember I paused. And I didn't know what was going to happen. Like, was I going to get ostracized? Was I going to get kicked out of this group of guys? And the one guy said, you know what, Faraz, you got it right. Don't mess up. He goes, keep with it. You're doing the right thing. And I remember him pulling me on the side saying, you know, we're all talking about, you know, the first, you know, person we were with. Yours is going to, you know, the first person you're with is your wife. That's a good thing. And they watched me for 4 years because I dormed there. So they would watch really closely. Is he messing up?
Oh my God.
Is he doing that? But what that taught me was, if you make the intention, and so don't wear religion on your sleeve. You got to believe it in your heart. Okay. Don't judge. Otherwise you will be judged. But if you make that intention, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does open roads. And I learned that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is with you and open roads if you stick to your identity and you have sincere intentions. And don't wear religion on your sleeve. He makes ways. And it was a great 4 years, man. I mean, I learned a lot from them. They, you know, we had some great stories that, you know, we probably don't have time to go over, but I mean, these guys would come over during Ramadan. They would break fast with me. They would do suhoor with me. I would cook for them.
Have any of them accepted Islam?
No.
Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala guide them if you're still in connection with them.
Yeah.
And during those years, did you develop what was your relationship with the Muslim community?
Yeah.
So were you already integrated with the masjid, or did you kind of build that in college? I know some people have different.
So we had a youth group we had started when I was in high school in the Teaneck Mosque. Back then, it was the precursor to YM. It was called MYF, Muslim Youth Foundation, right? And those guys probably don't know it today, but they were a tremendous help for me in college because I used to go there every Friday. So I used to go from Pace to Teaneck. You know, got a car and drove, and just hanging out with them. We had the halakas, and then we used to just hang out in the city and just hang out and have fun, or go to the diners. You know, Jersey's known for diners and 24-hour diners. And they're pretty good, man. They're not like the diners here in
the truck
Atlanta.
drivers, right?
No. This is like cool stuff, man. Like, you can get good quality food in a New Jersey diner. In Atlanta, you know, that's not the case. Or you got to pay like a lot of money for food here for a diner. But over there, we used to hang out in the diners, right? And that was my time to decompress. That was my time where I could share, like, you know, just like, hey, here's what I'm going through, bounce things off. And they would share the same things. Like, we were all in the same boat in one sense, but they didn't realize how much they helped me. I'm forever indebted. And that's the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's like I said, the du'as of our parents and our grandparents, and the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that all of this happened, I believe. And
did you seek them out, or was it like, how did that happen?
Well, they're my childhood friends. Right? From that community. And so when I went to school, and then my parents ended up moving to Florida in '94. So, you know, they were in Florida. So I was by myself, right? I mean, I had, you know, aside from my friends. And so I would go there on Fridays. Sometimes I'd spend the night there and come back. And that, you know, just that made a difference for me because I was able to be there. They understood where I was coming from because they understood the pressures. And you could just kind of be there and hang out and be yourself. No judgments. And that really, really helped me get through my college years and gave me confidence. And, you know, I'm just really, really indebted to those brothers for what they've done.
Yeah. I mean, it's really easy to get caught in the wave of the broader culture.
Yeah.
And a person, you know, will start to normalize certain things that are probably not part of what our deen, just like dating is a basic example, but there are tons of examples. And then you kind of lose sight of what's what.
Yeah.
So having that space, that group that you can kind of rely on to keep you in check, but also relieve that built-in pressure. It's like, there's so much pressure built in inside of you. Shaitan is pressing, and shaitan is made from fire. So it's like it's heating up, and you have to have something that will, release that tension.
Yeah.
And that's where friendship kind of comes in and cools a person down and reminds him what matters and what doesn't matter.
Yeah, I think, what I tell my son this, he's just started dorming in college, right? And I tell others, kids, friends have a big impact. And you got to make sure you have a good circle of friends and a good mix from different backgrounds too. So I alhamdulillah, for me, I had a good circle of Muslim friends and I had a good circle of people from different faiths. And that's important because we live in America, right? It's a country with multi-faiths. It's very diverse. But make sure the people are aligned with your morals and are not going to pressure into something you don't want to do, both for Muslim and other faiths. A lot of times we just kind of get this false thing that you can relax in one area and not in the other. And I remember, the guys I hung out at college, they never pressured me to drink. They never pressured me to do anything that I didn't want to do.
Yeah, I mean, but shaitan has his pressure too.
Shaitan has it because
they may not be pressuring you.
Yeah.
But just sometimes seeing something or hearing about it in a way that's, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, "Zayyana lahum ash-shaytan." He decorates these things. And so I'll say, like, from my perspective, a lot of people dating and stuff like that, you feel lonely where everybody else is like, doing what they're doing, and you're just like, well, I don't want to do that. But on the inside, shaitan is like nudging you and putting these thoughts in your head. And so
there were times I felt like the third wheel. You're like that third wheel, right? Everyone's dating and you're not. And when you're going out, right, to the mall or whatever, you're kind of just by yourself. But that's where the weekends would help me, where I could decompress. Right? And that's why it's really important to have a good circle of friends. I can't stress that enough, because if you don't, they can carry, you can go a different path altogether. That's probably the most important thing when you're doing college, even if you're dorming or not. If you're dorming, it's very important to have a good circle. And when you're not dorming, you still see the elements, right? And it's important to have solid friends that kind of walk you through that. And those are really, you got to look at your moral compass. You got to know where you stand. You got to know where you want to be. And then from there, make sure you select the right friends. There was a article I read that you are the average of the 5 people you hang out the most with. So think about, the 5 people you hang out the most with. You're the average in mannerisms, what you do, even in the type of work that you do and everything. You're the average of the 5, the people you hang out the most. So, everyone should check who are the 5 people, and is that the direction you want to go?
SubhanAllah.
Right, so
that's very beautiful. Jazakumullah khairan, Faraz.
Anytime.
So we need to have you on again, inshallah. We're going to have to cut this short for time, but very beautiful conversation. Maybe next time we can touch up some more on some youth group stuff and ideas, and maybe having like an indirect suggestion for YM and all these other groups.
Yeah, we can. Would you agree, Eli? Yeah, Eli agrees too. So there you go. Yeah, absolutely.
He's not allowed on my set. You can make your own podcast and have a thing. My guy right there is Mandalorian.
Yeah, mashallah. Mandalorian's really good. I got another story on that. We'll share on another day. But I appreciate you doing this. Look, this is really important to give the community an outlet, the ability to talk and have these important discussions and other discussions. So really appreciate you creating the platform.
Inshallah. We just have to have people that don't lose our crowd after talking about gardening.
Yeah, well, look, I will say I make a mean omelet. So one of these days I'll make an omelet and you'll look back and be like, wait a minute, you made this from your garden? I'll be like, yes. And then you'll think about gardening differently.
Okay.
I'll end with one dad joke.
Challenge accepted.
I'll add with one
dad
joke.
All right, last dad joke.
Okay.
Let's go.
So why are you going to carry, why would you carry a pair of socks to when you go golfing?
Why?
Just in case you get a hole in one.
Oh my God.
And with that, we're going to end.
With that, we lost all our likes, all the subscribes. I don't even blame you if you don't.
Hole in one. You get it? Hole in the sock, hole in one. I mean, it's pretty funny, man.
I thought I was bad, but that was, oh man. All right, guys. Jazakumullah khairan. Support the channel, and brother Faraz, he's clearly supporting YM, so give him a shout out as well, inshallah. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless you, and jazakallah for tuning in. Assalamu alaikum.